My name is Antrashelle Dorsey, and unlike most people in this room, I grew up on the other side of the tracks like you guys. But I was fortunate enough to be married and come on this side, so where now I'm all urbanized and I'm afforded to go to college. But the one thing that I am starting to notice now, as a communications major, there are debates that are sparking up in the classrooms that I feel that I have to take a stand and I have to debate. But I feel that sometimes I lack the fight that I may need to have, or I lack the intelligent words to effectively get my point across. So I want to ask you guys, how can I work on fighting for us or taking a stand for who we really are, as well as still coming across as an intelligent African-American woman versus the angry black woman with the big red afro?
Yeah, so somebody came up to me after one of the panels this morning and was just like, you know, who trained you on how to speak to a crowd? Because you say fuck a lot. And I was just like, bro, who trained you? Like, why you trying to tell me I'm not intelligent? Intelligence, we've got this boxed idea of what intelligence is, right? You know, intelligence is not determined by anything you can learn in a classroom. It's about how you apply information that you have received from any individual you've met in life and apply that to the necessary situation. So you don't have to worry about coming off as intelligent, right? Your intelligence is just being a beautiful individual speaking. There's no intelligent way we can challenge the system or say what needs to be said. Sometimes it is very necessary to be that angry black woman with the big red afro, but that's who you are. The best way to be intelligent is to be yourself. I have no political correctness, I have no filter. This movement right here is a carefree movement where, like, niggas just say whatever they want to say and it gets things said. I said whatever I wanted to say to Geraldo, and I didn't think about it in any type of strategic manner, but it said something that it resonated with so many people who weren't embedded inside of being politically correct.
And if I could just add on to that, we have a different view. I personally look at that. First of all, you are extremely beautiful and amazingly intelligent. Just by you standing up and asking that question, I was like, where's this coming from, right? But I think that what we need to do, and especially like when I go to places like we met at Weiler, Texas at Sandra Bland. I was there, I didn't know these guys, but because of part of the activism, I was there in Baltimore. But my style is a little bit different. I like to infiltrate the system and change the message. My mother always told me, you can catch more flies with what? Honey. Than you ever can with vinegar. So if I want to just argue with you, then I'm going to just fire off. But if I want to come to the table and have a discussion about something and get foundation and really move people, I'm going to go with a little bit more kindness and possibly a smile. Today, I was not expecting this conversation. We were at in the cafeteria area, and we're talking about being an activist. And this young woman comes over, she's like, I'm an activist too. I was like, all right, come on, talk about it. Human rights activist. We'll come to find out she's a hardcore Bible Belt and pro-choice, right? But I said, pro-life, thank you. That was wrong, she's building out. Pro-life. But what I didn't want to argue over the details. What I want to do is, what can we come to the table on? Can we come to the table and agree that Planned Parenthood needs to have birth control and the woman needs to have access, and that the woman that do decide to get to have the baby, that there's support for them, and that we don't judge and condemn the other ones? Can we just come to the table on that? And do you see how sweet that was? So I didn't push you away. I didn't add on to a stereotype. It doesn't mean, because I'm a black woman, it doesn't mean I need to be angry all the time. And I think that what happens is people are so used to telling you who you're supposed to be that they've locked us into this category. They tell me I'm different, that I'm a sellout because I talk different. I was there with all of these movements. I walked 1,000 miles from Selma, Alabama to Washington, D.C. I'm not a sellout because I talk this way. What I want to do, I want to sweet talk you to thinking like me. So kindness is always, because you have to put that ego over here, right? I want people to come to the table.
I wanted to just add to specifically, eventually you want to win some of these debates, right? And it's going to happen because it's conversations that end up being debates. Primary sources. Because a lot of these conversations happen in classrooms and online. I heard somebody said about this, somebody said this, somebody said this. And then you look up what that somebody said is nowhere near the quote that they said. Primary sources, because right now we live in an age where everybody just falls off the wing. And still don't expect to win the argument, because sometimes there are people who are immune to facts, climate change. So I just want to say that when it comes to when you want to, like, your frustration, understand that it never stops being frustrating. Collecting information, patiently just being quiet, because honestly, you may not know what that person's saying. Sounds crazy, you know that it's wrong for a fact because it sounds crazy, but you don't know the exact fact of how to present it to them because you didn't look into it. You're gonna have to just chalk that one up, write it down on the side, go home and research it, so next time that comes up, you can just disseminate it right there on the spot. Leave them naked, and then you won.
Anyone else has any questions, comments?
Hello, you can just call me Q. It's much easier because people can't really get my real name right. First of all, I want to thank you guys for being here tonight. I was actually kind of torn on whether or not I wanted to come out here personally, but to be honest, I'm actually glad I did. But I'm really curious. So for me, my entire life, growing up as a kid, through my teen years and everything, I've always had different friends of many different racial backgrounds and ethnicities. And you know, growing up as a kid in the 90s, everything was a lot more subtle. It was a lot softer and more stable. Just in my opinion, personally, it was stable. And I had so many different friends, and never at all have I experienced this explosion of all this racial tension that is going on now than when I was a kid. Of course, there was Rodney King, there was all the stuff that was happening before that. But honestly, like Stephen was saying, I never saw it as a kid. Didn't really see it too much as a teenager when I grew up. What I want to know is, you know, now that everything has happened the way it has, would you say that there's been a specific turning point, an event that has triggered all this, or is it something, there's a specific catalyst or an element that has just triggered this explosion of racial tension that's seemingly spiraling out of control? Because I compare everything I see and I'm experiencing now to how everything was back then I was a kid, and it seems it's like it's night and day. And when I think about it, it's like along the way, I don't know how that happened. It seems that everything is just spiraling out of control, and it's becoming more politicized, and it's just snowballing. It seems like it's pulling away.
I get where you're coming from here, but let me just answer this question. The thing that's different now than is different within the 90s is the cell phone. There were plenty of cases in Detroit, plenty of people getting beat up by the police. This is something that wasn't just stopped in the 90s. What happened was there were no cell phones. So now everybody has a camera phone. What's one of Sandra Bland said? What did she say?
It's the most powerful. Just something we can do something with this.
Right. It's the most powerful thing. So what we're seeing now is we're seeing that everybody's like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm catching you on tape. And I think that what the injustice is, like the injustice in the 90s of Rodney King, it's the first time in my lifetime, remember, that I saw an injustice happen right now. I saw the cops that were crooked, I saw the system that didn't work. But now when you see the system and the police over and over and over and over and over again, that's where this thing is coming into reputation. Now, mind you, there are more police officers that are good than that are bad, right? There's more good people in the world than will ever be bad. But what's sexy, right? What gets the attention? We need to focus the attention on when police officers are beating up people. We need to focus on why these people aren't getting indicted. So I think what the difference is now is that everybody's a cameraman. And so everybody can put up their history of what and document what's going on. Does that answer your question a little bit?
First, let me say one. I'm gonna answer your question, but there are no good police officers in this country at all. Not one. You can't name one good police officer, because a good police officer will stand against the blue line and stand up and say Black Lives Matter. And the work that my colleagues just did was messed up. This country was built on racial tension, right? When the Pilgrims came over to America, they initiated a war and a genocide on an entire group of indigenous people. They brought over a group of people that were brought over here from Africa to make them slaves, right? This country was built off of white supremacy, which is the child of Eurocentricity, right? So the whole world has always been built off of racial tension. What happens is that we get spoon-fed as children that we live in this post-racial society, or that Dr. King had this marvelous dream that black people and white people will be able to hold hands on the hill and sing Kumbaya. And that's not necessarily reality, right? So that's why we gotta start tapping into young people, younger and younger, to be able to let them know that, listen, you are black, you are black, you are oppressed, you are part of a marginalized group. You should be able to say that as loud as you are. We shouldn't wait until we are conscious enough or mature enough to be able to watch it on TV, right? And say, you know, and for us to be able to understand what's happening in this world. Nothing's changed, right? Nothing's changed from us fighting from Rodney King till now. The only difference is that the further and further we move away from slavery, the more rebellious the generation gets. So when Rodney King happened, our parents, they failed us. They didn't fight hard enough. They weren't carefree enough. They were too embedded in working within a system that's not broken, it's perfected, that they didn't realize that they had to be carefree enough to step away from the system and just be like, you know what, we're gonna let it burn, right? I don't want a seat at the table because it ain't enough seats for me and my niggas to eat, right? I want to build a house where we can all throw a party, where we can all just sit around and just play music that's like we gonna be all right and we hate po-po and white supremacy, right? That's the type of system I want. But also, right, even if oppression,
That's the system that I want, and I don't think that's.
but this is my opinion. But even if you know oppression doesn't happen to you or an experience doesn't happen to you, it happens to your friends, and you should also be able to share, be comfortable enough to share that type of space, an environment where you can talk about it and not speak for your friend as an ally, but use your voice to enhance that oppressed voice.
I'm not a nigga, and I don't use that word, and
I'm a nigga.
We all don't have to come to the table and for to be intelligent to be niggas. And the generation, I believe, did not fail all of us. We have our own experience. A lot of people that are black don't feel like they're oppressed. I'm not saying they don't have racism. Fat people have racism. Jewish people are picked on. Everybody.
Yeah, but you can't compare them to, like, black is black in this country. It's specifically saying in the Constitution, black people are 3/5 of a human being.
One second. I actually want to answer your question, okay? I understand everybody's passionate, they have their stances, but we want to answer the question that was asked. And I know exactly what you said as far as growing up in the 90s. I mean, I'm an 80s baby, 86. And I know what you're talking about. And I want to address what you asked as far as what you saw and what you're seeing now. And like Keisha said, yes, it is the cell phone, it is social media, because the television that we watched was post-racial America. 90s, everybody's kumbaya, everybody's chilling, everybody's good, there's no racism, wink, wink. Then, social media blew that up. There is no more mainstream media dominance over what you see, what you hear, what you're interpreted, how you get the information. We're speaking to ourselves, we're building our own narrative. So the disillusion that you are experiencing, that I hear in your voice, is that what you grew up seeing is not what it is. And that's what black people have been living through since they got here. That's what you have to come to terms with. And I can see that you're white, you're probably what, Hispanic, Latino, right? What, Filipino? Spanish, come on. Know your history. I know, technically Asian, but Hispanic mix. Honestly, that's what I'm saying. But what I'm trying to say is, obviously, you are a person of color. You're a person of color, so you will also, you grew up and you've had your brushes with racism, you know? So, understanding that growing up as children, we're so innocent, and we see something that we hold on to dearly, then when we grow up and we experience the real world, and now social media is not gonna give a lot of these children the opportunity to have that illusion. So it's our responsibility to make sure that what you felt, children don't feel no more, because you gotta have to guide them through this thing called life.
That makes a lot of sense. Just one small question before I let you go. Based on everything that you're experiencing now, everything that we see, do you foresee that this racial tension will subside, that we can actually create a sanctuary and perpetuate more positivity and unity among us as just people, and
Absolutely.
Well, to answer it, so we can get to the next question, is it's gonna get a whole lot worse before it gets better, but it's up to us to make sure it gets better.
All right. I don't need the mic. I don't need. Look, first of all, I was at Netroots Nation when yes, exactly. When we had the first thing with Black Lives Matter coming and intercepting Bernie Sanders. I see a generational difference between Kwame and Keisha, okay? And there's an important thing that I think has to be answered, because I think one of the failures of the older generation is what has created a lot of the anger that your generation has justifiably. But what I generally ask folks of your generation, and I interviewed Patrice Cullors. I interviewed her at Netroots Nation as well as here at KPFT. And the specific question I asked was, what is the end game? I listened to both of you speaking right now. I listened to your anger, and my question to you as a very intelligent young man who says all cops are bad, and by the way, I don't share the belief because I have family that are also cops, and I understand the whole issue of white supremacy, I understand the whole issue of privilege. My question to you specifically then is, what is the end game? Because anger is one thing, and I think what Keisha talks about is how do we turn the anger into action. And I want to get the input from the young folk who I have a whole lot of faith in going forward, and who I expect that going forward in this election, they don't simply say that, well, X won't happen, and I won't use your language per se, but X won't happen, but we are going to make a difference by actually engaging. So to you, what are you going to do, and what do you see as the end game? Because as an intelligent young man, it is up to you.
So, two points. So, all cops are bad, and this is why. The last time I got arrested, I was arrested by my father's friends, men I grew up around. And when we get on the elevator, first of all, I'm facing like 6 months in jail for having a bullhorn. Right? When William Porter was announced that it was a mistrial, they came and locked me up 15 minutes later. And after, when we get on the elevator, while I'm in handcuffs going up into the courthouse, I turn around and I say, y'all just did this to piss my father off. And these men that I have grown up around, they know I am harmless to them.
Yes.
Do you know what they tell me?
I know what they say.
We're just doing our job, and we had an order to come get you.
Yes.
So therefore, their job was more important than my freedom. So they are bad, and they are part of the system. The end goal for me, but I do not participate in Black Lives Matter to be politicized, right? I've never voted. I don't plan on voting this year. I'm not inspired to vote. There's not a candidate that is on a ballot right now that I truly believe reflects anything that I believe in, right? I don't believe the system is broken. I don't believe the system has the wrong people inside of it. I believe that the system is perfected. And the more immediate solution that we have as individuals inside this room is to work with young people, because we can change the minds of individuals far more quicker than we could ever change a system.
Agreed. End game. What is your end game
My
going
end
forward?
game is to change I'm not going to change the world.
Yeah.
Like Tupac said, but if I can spark the minds of 2 or 3 young people that will, then I've done something that creates a better tomorrow, so that generations from now, we can finally put an end to racism, into poverty, into disadvantages inside of this country. But it first starts with changing the minds of young people. We ain't there yet.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because, see, the thing about my experience being able to be up close to the Black Lives Matter movement, I'm able to see the future of revolutions going on, right? And what I see is that there are different coalitions. There are people who are more diplomatic, but Kwame don't give a fuck, you know?
Yes.
And there are coalitions of Kwames out there. And on the other side, they're called Trump supporters. You understand?
Yeah.
But one side works with facts,
Yeah.
and the other one doesn't. And the other side that works with facts, right here, has a reason to be that angry.
Yes.
So if they are disillusioned with the system, then it's our jobs over here, the ones that are more diplomatic, to be like, well, I'm gonna earn your trust. I'm gonna make sure that eventually you know that I'm not full of shit.
Yeah.
And that if I do know a few people who are gonna run for office, well, you know what? 2 years ago, we were protesting together, so I'm gonna vote for that person. And there's somebody that could be standing in this room, there's somebody that could be right now just going to middle school, or it could be somebody right now that's in prison. But the whole point is that this movement is bringing the humanity out of people to understand the authenticity is how we're gonna get this done.
And I just want to add on to that. to me, it's extremely important to vote. Because when you don't vote, you give up your right. And on top of that, when you don't vote and the grand jury is going to indict somebody, you're not even in the jury box to set the example. So to say that you don't want to vote is a disrespect to the fight that you're trying to have, because we start from the ground up. We start within the community, okay? If you don't like the sheriff in town because he's locking up too many black folks and he has no accountability in his office, and you vote him out, that's how you start. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Start here in the community, right? So to not vote is a disrespect to our ancestors that fought for the right to vote. And if you really think that voting didn't matter, then why are the Koch brothers spending so much money? Why are the voting rights, the Republicans spending gutting the Voting Rights Act? Why when we were starting to get the right to vote, they made it so hard and said, you know what, how many angels can fit on a pin? That's a powerful thing to vote. And for this younger generation to think that I'm just gonna throw it away, they don't have the wisdom. Yes, when I was young, I was extremely passionate, and I definitely thought I knew everything. But it has to come with wisdom. And we cannot, as activists, go out here and tell people not to vote.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Thank you, guys.
Sure, so I have I've listened to Kwame. I think you're hitting all the nails on the head. And as a white guy, I'll support you in your statements against the cops. You're right. They have the badge on. They're not standing with the people. They're not standing for justice. They're standing to uphold the law in the state, and that's their concern. Moving on, I think that we have put an unfair burden on you to ask you what the end game is. If we go to the older generation, we adopt this generational divide that we see on the panel, then what is the prior generation's end game? You've got white supremacists in your ranks, and you're going to protect them. Why do white supremacists need protection? You're going to love your way out of oppression? What's the end game on that? That to me makes absolutely no sense. And as a last note, I think that when Kwame is doing such a good job articulating himself, if we're going to say that we're an ally and we're going to make our speech about that, we probably don't need to touch him on the arm and take over.
Well, thank you so much for your input, but I want to answer that because I think that
You're asking me why would I save the Klansman, right? Basically, because I'm a human being. And when I gotta go to my creator, he's not gonna ask me, oh, you only save the black ones. See, my life and my experience and my humanity goes beyond the color of my skin. I'm not saying that I'm not a Black Lives Matter movement activist. Remember, I was the original one that saved the Klansman and pushed the police officer. People ask me all the time, would I do it again? I say, I hope I don't ever have to be in that situation. Part number 2. The small victories in the never-ending struggle in which we refuse to surrender. I refuse to say that it's the way it's going to be. Every generation has the ability to make things better. And the final thing I'm going to say, how can you say all cops are bad? All cops, every single cop that will go on that line is not a bad person. That's just like saying that all firefighters are bad. If I'm in trouble, the first people I'm going to call if I'm going to get murdered are the police. So, what? But we cannot divide or hide from the fact that, yes, there's corruption in the system. And I think what happened in Ferguson should be applauded. Because what they did is they took down that system. And Ferguson is being successfully sued. And people are like, oh, well, you won't see money out of that. But let me tell you the first thing. You threw a brick and knocked the foundation. So now you go in there and you vote for who needs to be in there. And you start building it back up. Kwame talked about knocking down the system. Well, Ferguson got knocked down. Let's start to build it back up. And how can you live, let me tell you something, when you live in anger, when you wake up every single day and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm black and the world hates me. You start to see the world like that. I wake up every day and you know what I say? What a joyous day. Now, do I come across people that don't like me because of the color of my skin? Absolutely. But am I gonna go out there and just think, oh my gosh, every day, like everybody hates me all the time? No, you got one life. What you gonna do, man?
Right quick, I want to interject, maybe make this a teaching moment within how the movement works and how I know that this is about relationships. And I say this with love. You pointed out that an ally wouldn't tap, Kwame like that. See, this is the thing. Me and Kwame, even though this is the first time we're physically around each other, this social media thing, we've been talking to each other for a while. I mean, there's a relationship. I'm not policing him. I'm just being like, Hey, Kwame, I know you're about to Kwame, but, you know, Kwame a little less right now, you know? So we can move on. So, you know, not to attack you, I just want you to understand, this has been a long day for the three of us. So, this relationships, so let's make sure we don't police each other's allyship, all right?
So, that is true. I do get told not to Kwame a lot. But, so I'll tell the different story about an interaction I had with the Klan rally. So it was like, I got arrested in September for like getting hit by a car, and the police just arrested me for being in the middle of the street at a protest. And so we go to DC, there's a Klan rally because they want to keep up the Confederate flag. So we're in DC, and in DC, like you can protest. Like the police cannot come near you. Like when I tell you you get 3 clear warnings, like they give you 3 clear warnings, and like they still can't arrest you. So we like get the idea like, well, we gotta start taking these flags from the Klansmen, because ain't nobody just gonna be violent. I mean, we just not violent people. Like we, you know, we're self-defensive. So we start sending white allies in. But then they started noticing the white men didn't have on Confederates. So we started sending the white women as, the white women allies, we started sending them in to infiltrate the white Klansmen group. We weren't trying to save them, we was trying to scare them, because what we would do is take their flags, and then we would bring them back and then burn them right there. Right, so I think that shows also a double entendre, because what it shows is that, you know, some of us are going to be in the system and going to be able to go inside of a building and co-opt that building, and we got to use those people for their place and what their role is inside of the movement. We all have roles. DeRay plays an important role on social media when he's able to tweet, go on Colbert and say things about white supremacy and white privilege, and he plays that role very well. Whereas people like me can, you know, I don't do the media. I don't do any type of media because they're all co-opted, and they'll try to voice, you know, control my story and everything. So we all play a role inside of this movement, and I think that's an important part to know, that this movement is not made up of an individual with a Dr. King figure or Martin Luther King figure or any martyr type figure. It's a bunch of individuals who have decided to take to social media, take to the streets, and use their voices and stand up and say the things that they truly believe in. And another thing, if you aren't willing to risk your life for this, if you aren't willing to risk your life and freedom for the betterment of black people in this country, then you aren't willing to risk your life for the betterment of your own life inside of this country.
I think we have another question.
I don't really have a question. Is this on? I don't need this. I'm nervous. I'm about as white as you can get, you know. I don't think you're probably getting whiter than I am. I laud your movement, and I think, you know, I wonder, I'm a child of the 50s, and I wonder where you've been all this time. You know, we had our little hippie movement and our Black Power movement, but that kind of fizzled out, you know, and then nothing happened for a long time. I'm going to ask a question. You seem to be segments of the movement. You're, you know, really far left, and you're kind of in the middle, and you're kind of a moderate. I'm just wanting to ask you, because I probably won't be around in 20 more years, and but I think I'll be reincarnated, and I might come back. So, what am I going to see in the next 20 to 25 years?
Well,
all of you.
I want to ask you a question. Where you been?
What? Well, I've been here.
Yeah, if you ain't using that white skin, that white privilege to co-opt white spaces and tell them about anti-blackness and white supremacy, then...
I have sometimes.
But not all the time.
But I tell you this, I've changed my opinion many times since I was 21. I'm 71 now. And I'll tell you this, you're going to change your opinions of some things many times before you get to be...
One thing I can't change is the fact that I'm black.
No, you can't change that. And I can't change the fact that I'm white either.
Yeah, but so what I would say is, you know, when people ask me all the time, you know, where have y'all been? You know, I'm 21. I just got here, right? I just got the bed.
I'm asking you, what's going to be, what is this United States going to look like in 20 years? Just tell me.
Well, I hope it's blacker than ever. But
okay. Well,
no, but in 20 years, I hope that I'm fighting for the lives of black people and other oppressed people in this country, and I hope that you are using your privilege and your space and everything that you've done in your life to fight for the same thing that I'm fighting for and amplifying the voice of the oppressed.
What about you, sir?
in 20 years, the way things are looking like, if Russia, China, and the United States don't blow each other off, that's politics aside. If we're able to transition this the way it's going, I believe that we're going to have a more integrated, segregated country. And that's political in the sense of, I see the multi-party system coming very soon, where nationalists, or socialists, or fascists, they're all gonna start coupling up within the parameters of the Constitution as far as making sure they're not killing each other, committing genocide, but at least forming political movements that are gonna make people start making decisions where they wanna live, who they wanna work with, how they're gonna make their business. And among all that, still what's been going on, a diverse mixing of races is gonna be happening because there's still always gonna be that. But I believe we're gonna see in America that's gonna be a lot less politically correct, but actually that opens up honesty. So that way all of a sudden you start seeing people knowing who they're just not gonna stay around with. And they're just gonna go wherever they feel most comfortable. But it's gonna be more diverse. That's what I see in 20 years.
Do you see more of an amalgamation of everybody? You know, there's people that say there is no race, just the human race.
Right.
And do you see
White
more of
people don't say
that
that.
coming in?
Well, I'll say this. They used to say that the United States is a melting pot, right? Melting pot of everything. That was the mistake. We shouldn't have you don't just throw everything, it might not taste good. That's what we're dealing with, it doesn't taste good. So what we're gonna have is a really long table full of different dishes and everybody gets to choose what they want.
What I would like to see in my lifetime, I would like to see a space in which every culture, whether you're Asian, you're Black, you're Muslim, that you can be who you are within your culture, but nobody, when you go outside, people don't look at you like you're less of a human being. That we can respect each other for where we're at. That I don't have to say, you know, I'm better than you or you're better than me. Or I don't have to scream, you know, I wanna rest. I wanna stop fighting. I want to live in a place where children will grow up and they'll respect one another. That's true freedom. A place and a space where we can grow, we can learn, and we can love. That's a society that I want to live in. That's a legacy that I want to leave. Is it hard to be on this side when it's sexy to be this and that? I was this guy when I was younger. But like you said, your mind and your opinions will change. At some point, you get tired of fighting over stuff that you know is not worth it, because at the end of the day, we all still bleed. But that doesn't make me any less of a Black woman because I respect the life of a white man.
Okay, we've got time for one more.
I can project it too. I think it was this past summer there was a dust-up when a certain politician, when asked for his response to Black Lives Matter, said that all lives matter. And I wonder if you would address your own thoughts as to why that's problematic. And Kwame, you specifically, the irony that was Martin O'Malley who called down a little hell upon himself for saying that.
I think at one point, every Democratic presidential candidate has said all lives matter. And so it can be summed up like this. Well, Martin O'Malley is problematic in itself because he locked up over 1 million Black people while he was the mayor and governor of Maryland and Baltimore City. But all lives matter, but all lives aren't a threat. And so when we talk about, when we project and when we kind of look inside of America as this post-racial society, we are only perpetuating white supremacy, and to say that, whiteness is allowed to captivate all other bodies of society, and that we have to work within that whiteness instead of realizing our individualism. White supremacy sees race. No matter how American and I don't call myself an American, hypothetically, no matter how much I say, well, I'm an American, I'm not Black, I'm an American, I know that the Constitution says that I'm 3/5 of a human being because I'm here on American soil. I know that the police are more times likely to pull me over because of the color of my skin. I know that it'll be harder for me to get a job because of my name. I know that if you Google my name, it'll be harder for me to get a job because of the criminal record that I now have. I know that I got cousins that are doing life in prison for having crack. And I know that I got white friends and allies who do cocaine every day and have never been arrested. You know, so I know that all lives aren't treated fairly inside of this society, in this system, and all lives don't even realize that all lives aren't equal. So I think it does us a disservice when we don't realize as individuals, when we continue to put forth the message that, you know, there is just one race. Sure, we're all humans. We all disintegrated from Africa billions of years ago. But inside of America, inside of Eurocentricity and its birth child of white supremacy, all lives do not matter. Black lives have always been a threat inside of America. Latino lives are under attack inside of America. Arab American lives are under attack inside of America. Those who choose to be Muslim, their lives are under attack inside of America. And when we don't realize that America is a melting pot of problems and racist ideologies that we have never addressed or have put out the fire of white supremacy, then that fire and that melting pot of racist ideologies will just always continue and perpetuate itself.
I just love the fact that there's like a huge Netroots rally connection here with the fact that, you know, you were there. I have a, Netroots rally is where Martin O'Malley got confronted by a group of activists that he covered, which one of those activists is actually one of the organizers that I worked with on the Sandra Bland situation, who made Martin O'Malley have to respond with, you know, does Black Lives Matter? And he says all lives matter. And they got booed out of the building. Kwame covered the reality of why that statement is not true, and that's what we have to come to terms with. We have to understand that there's always, you know, a propaganda tool to counter anything that's been a resistant movement. And if it's a catchphrase, you know, Black Lives Matter, it becomes a catchphrase, and their catchphrase becomes all lives matter because they want to be kumbaya about the situation. So you have to understand that what that does is it's designed to quiet those voices that say Black Lives Matter. And if you're one of those people who always likes to say, and everybody says this is one of the most oldest phrases that people say is, actions speak louder than words. So when you say all lives matter, but the actions of police officers, of judges, of teachers, of regular people are not matching that actual phrase, all lives matter, then you have to stop saying it immediately. And that's the reality.
So of course I have a different view, right? But this is what I always say. Number one, we're gonna go vote those people out that are not making the changes that we need. That's important, right? We can't complain about a system if we don't want to go out there and vote and actually change it, right? So imagine that there's a tree, right? There's the roots of the tree, the trunk of the tree, and the branches that leave the tree. The root of the tree, to me, is environmental justice. Because if we don't take care of our environment, none of us are gonna be living here anyway. Does it really matter? The trunk of the tree to me is that we're all human, that all lives matter. Now, this is where it gets different. The branches of the tree are Black lives matter, Arabic women's lives matter, Haitians' lives matter, sex slaves' lives matter. See, I'm an international human rights activist. That means that it's, yes, I am Black first, yes, I've been part of the Black Lives Movement, or before it was even called the Black Lives Movement. But that doesn't mean that because your branch is something else, sex slaves, that you counter or you say that they're wrong or they're not sticking out enough or you're not Black enough. Whatever is on your plate to change the world, grab it, do something. Don't just say, oh, it's not the Black Lives Matter, so nothing matters. You're here on this planet to make it better. And if you choose to work with animals, elderly people, Black Lives Matter, women's sexual abuse, get up and do something.
Okay, so I want to thank our panelists tonight. I think I really enjoy discussions like this. We don't all have to agree on everything, but I think what we have are three people that are working for a similar cause, for similar goals, and how we go about that varies, but we all have a vision of where we want to go. And I really enjoy seeing the differences as well as the points of agreement in discussions like this. So I want to thank you all on behalf of the Center for Civic Engagement. We have a small, I feel like Vanna White, party gift.